All right, in this lecture, we are going to learn about alert dialog. So this is the second Android concept that I want you to learn before we dive into the Notes app. And essentially what alert dialog does is it pops up, it lets the user select one of two options and allows them to move forward. It's just sort of, hey, if you need to check on something, maybe display an error to the user, this can be an effective way to do that. So let's go ahead and start a new Android project. What we're going to do is first learn about alert dialogs, then I have a challenge for you. So let's just go ahead and call this one alert demo. Okay, we just want defaults on everything here, so we'll go ahead and get that set up. So the basic idea with this first one is we're just going to create an alert dialog that basically says, hey, are you sure that you want to do this? It's supposed to be like a dialogue that might be presented when someone's opening an app for the very first time, or they're about to do a save, or they're going to delete something, right? It's trying to confirm some sort of user action. So this is mostly just a demo to make sure you understand what's going on, and then we'll apply it later. So let's give ourselves some space to type. This is all done via code. There's no visual part of this that needs to be done. So let's go ahead and first just create a new alert dialog. So we're going to create a new dialog. And don't get those parentheses at the end there. You want to do capital alert, capital dialog, dot, and we're going to say capital builder, just like this. And inside of those parentheses, you want to pass this because it's asking for a current context. And then you are going to be amazed by this. We're just going to keep offering thing after thing where we keep adding settings onto this alert dialog. So for example, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to say, this alert dialog builder dot, and then we want to set the icon. So we'll say set icon. And the way to get to a list of icon IDs, we're going to say lowercase android dot capital R dot drawable dot. And then this is where there's going to be a lot of them. So we want to go for IC underscore dialog alert. And you can see there's all sorts of different options here, but we just want the alert. This is kind of the basic one to work with. Now, because we're going to be getting a ton of these different settings on this one dialog builder, I recommend hitting enter each time you're going to add a new bullet point. So after we've set the icon, we want to do another bullet point, and we're going to say dot set title this time, right? So this is just going to be some string that says what it is that we want this to say. So we'll have this say, are you sure? Exclamation point, question mark. We got to make this as dramatic as possible. And then with this, we're also then going to set a message. So with an alert dialog, you're able to set a title and a message. The title is sort of the big thing in bold, and then you can add some more details here if you'd like. You don't have to include a message, but in this one we'll say, do you definitely want to do this? And then maybe we'll save the exclamation point on this one. We'll just do the question mark. So we've set the icon, title, message. Then we have to set the positive and the negative buttons. So first, let's go ahead and set the positive buttons. We'll say set positive button. So this is the one that users will select if they're trying to say yes to something or continue. So the reason that Android chose positive and negative buttons is that, every app's going to have different use cases for these alert dialogs. But if you always put the kind of affirmative, the yes, the positive thing with the positive button, users will kind of get used to stuff that's, in the positive position versus the not. Of course, there's titles there, but just sort of helps to keep those things in place. But with this positive button, a couple of things that it's looking for. First, it's looking for a string about what you want to say in this button. In this case, we'll say yes, right? So this is the positive button. We want to say yes there. The next thing is we want to set an on-click listener. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and say new space capital dialog, and we want the dialog interface on-click listener. So we'll just go ahead and hit enter on that, and you can see it gives us this huge chunk of code. And basically what we're looking for inside of here is inside of this on click, we can type anything, and this will be code that's run if someone chooses the yes option. So we'll go ahead and let's just, for example, make a toast with this. So we'll say toast.makeText. We'll provide our capital main activity.this as the context. Let's go ahead and put some sort of message, and we'll say maybe like it's done, to say that they had to confirm this action, so we went ahead and went through with it. Then we'll do capital toast dot length short, and we'll do a dot show on that and semicolon. Okay, so that was set everything up for the positive button. We also want to do a dot set negative button. So for this one, we want to go ahead and provide, again, a string. For this one, we'll say no. And then if you want to, for that on-click listener, you can provide null, which basically says, hey, if they choose this one, we're not going to do anything. We'll just say, you know what, close out of the dialog box and move forward. So after you set the negative button, really the last option here is you just have to say dot show. Okay. So again, this was a whole lot of code to create this dialog box and show it, but this is what we need in order to move forward. So let's go ahead and hit run here. And again, I'm going to teach you this skill, and then we're going to combine this with what we learned about menu items, make sure we've got both these skills in our tool belt, and then we'll move forward with making a fun little app. So here comes the app opening up. So look for this alert dialog to show up. And look at that. Are you sure? And this, I see dialog alert. We could have chose different icons if we wanted to. This one's kind of the, if something important's about to happen. And you can kind of mess around with those, see which one you want. And then you can see our message. Do you definitely want to do this? And there's the yes and the no. So if we say yes, then look, we get that little toast that says it's done. But if we run this one more time and instead select no, it's just going to simply not do anything because we provided null for that on-click listener. So we tap no on that one, nothing happens. Okay, so the challenge that I have for you is I want you to create an app where the user can save a language preference, whether they want to use your app in English or they want to use it in Spanish. And it doesn't have to be English and Spanish. Maybe you want it to be French and Japanese or Chinese and Guatemalan. That's not a language, that's a location. Regardless, anyways, just a language preference app. So I'm going to use English and Spanish. And the idea is that when the user opens the app for the very first time, it's going to present them an alert dialog and say, would you like to use English or Spanish in this app? And, they make their decision. And then once they've made their decision, there should be a menu item here that if they select this, they can go choose English or Spanish and update their selection. And when they update their selection, either the first time or through the menu item, that should be saved inside of the shared preferences. Okay, so that the next time they open it up, it's like, oh, they told us once they want to use this app in Spanish, we'll be able to provide stuff in Spanish. And whether they chose English or Spanish, just show it up inside of a text view here on the screen. In fact, you can just use the hello world that comes with a new app. Okay, so go ahead, create a new Android Studio project, go do that on your own, hit pause now. All right, so hopefully that went well for you. Let's go ahead and move forward with this. So we are going to create a new Android Studio project. So we'll go ahead and pick this. Now the name for this one, I'm going to call it language, let me spell this correctly, language preferences. There we go. Preferences. Man, my spelling is atrocious. It's embarrassing. But we'll go ahead. We'll just use the standards for all this moving forward. Okay. Now, once we got this in place, remember the first thing that we want to do is we want to present an alert dialog that, again, just says, hey, do you want to move forward in English or Spanish? So, we had just created all that code before. This should go really quickly. I would go do a copy and paste, but it's going to take about the same time to just type it out anyway. So let's just go for gold here. So we want a new alert dialog, and on this we want to do a builder, and with this we'll pass in this as the context, and then we'll start doing all our dots. So first thing, we've got to set the icon, and so we'll go ahead and do android.r.drawable dot, and let's go ahead and with this one, let's do I see button speak now. That will kind of help, talk about that we're, working with languages here. Then we're going to go ahead and set the title. With this, we're going to go ahead and say choose a language. Remember, we just want to provide 2 options. Next, let's go ahead and set the message. We'll sort of reiterate what we had said before, but we'll say, which language would you like to use? Question mark. Excellent. Next thing, we've got to set a positive button. So we'll say set positive button. With this, we're going to have, in this case, the positive be English and the negative be Spanish. Now, as for deciding which language goes where, totally up to you. Maybe your more positive option or more popular option you put in the positive box, but you know, depending on where your app's going to be, maybe Spanish is more popular than English. Maybe German is more popular than Japanese, right? But it probably doesn't matter too much in this situation. So we're going to go ahead and put English in this one. English. Awesome. Then we want to provide an on-click listener. So we're going to say new dialog interface on-click listener. So the code that we want to run through here is essentially we want to set the language to English. So let's just go ahead and say set English right now. We're going to create a function that is going to handle that for both either language option, but we just want that for now. Then let's go ahead and set the negative button. So for this one, we'll say Spanish. And again, we want a new dialog interface on-click listener. And this one, we want to set Spanish, just like that. All right, so we've got icon, title, message, positive, negative button. Once all those are in place, we simply want to do a dot show, and we'll do our semicolon there. Now, the question is, you know, how do we set the English and how do we set the Spanish? Like, what kind of code do we want to provide there? Well, we want to create a function that no matter what language we pass into it, it will be able to save that information. So let's go ahead and just make a new function. We'll say public void, and we'll call this maybe set language. And in the parentheses, we'll go ahead and provide, say, you know, you should pass in a string that we'll call language. Okay, go do our curly brackets on that, which now means if we want to set English, we just call set language and we provide English right inside of there. And if we want to do Spanish, we can say set language and just provide Spanish right inside of there. Okay, so now that's appropriately calling this method. Now we've got to write the code in order to make this all happen. So we want to save this in shared preferences. So we'll say shared preferences, lowercase shared preferences is equal to this dot get shared preferences. And inside of here, we're going to first pass the name of our app. Paste that in there. Then we're going to go ahead and provide, want a comma there. Then we want to do context dot, and we want mode private for this one. Okay. So we now have our shared preferences set up, and then let's go ahead and put in the language that they selected. So this should be very simple. We'll just say shared preferences dot edit, and this is where we're going to put a string inside of there. Now what's going to be the name of this? Remember, we'll just say something like language because we're just describing what it is that we're saving. Language. Am I spelling that correctly? Yeah, that looks fine to me. But then as for the actual value, let's pass in whatever came through in this language parameter. So we'll just say pass in language right there. Once we've got that in place, the next thing that we want to do is we want to update the text view, which then means we have to have access to the text view. So let's go over here to our main activity and let's figure out the ID for this hello world text view. Well, it doesn't have one, so let's go ahead and put that in. All right, so now that we've given it the name of text view, we have to get access to that. So we're going to say text view, lowercase text view is equal to find view by ID, capital R dot ID dot text view. Boom, now we have access to that. Then the next step for us is we want to set the text. So we're going to say text view dot set text, and we'll pass inside of there whatever the language is that they selected. So we'll just pass in language. Okay. So with that in place, let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Let's run this on the emulator. Okay, that looks good. Again, app should open up. It should present that dialog box or alert dialog, and we can say English or Spanish, or whichever one we chose. It should be saved in shared preferences, and also it should be showing up in the text view. Okay, so we'll go ahead and give this a second to load up here. And look at that, comes through. Which language would you like to use? I want to use Spanish. And if I select Spanish, dun, da, 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 look, it shows Spanish. Now, one thing that I would like to show here is that if we're going to be working with this app again, like let's say we close out of it and we open it back up, we would like it to be able to show what we chose last time. And so in order to do this, we've got to have access to our shared preferences. So let's go ahead and rather than having to type this code all the time, I'm going to cut this piece and I'm going to bring it up top as a property. And then whenever we are going to create the shared preferences, let's go ahead and just put this inside of the onCreate. So I'm going to cut this code. I'm going to come down to our onCreate and paste that code right in there so it says, okay, you know, we have the shared preferences. We can now use it here, but we can also use it in this method as well. So with that, let's go ahead and pull out whatever language we got from shared preferences. So let's make a new string called language, and we are going to set this equal to our shared preferences dot get string, and the string that we're looking for is the language. And then we need to provide a default just in case it doesn't come through. And in that case, you know, we could just leave it blank. I think it'd be nice to leave something like error so the user knows that something went wrong here. Okay, so that now gives us a language. And with this, we want to go ahead and do some sort of if statement, because if there's already been a language selected inside of the shared preferences, well, then we don't want to go do this whole alert dialog box. Like, that would be annoying for the user. Like right now, if we go to our emulator and let's go ahead and close out of language preferences and let's open it up. Let's see, there's language preferences. You can see, even though we've already picked Spanish and it's saved in shared preferences, you know, we have to be presented that question again. So we're going to go ahead and do an if statement and go put big curly brackets around all of this. Okay, and the thing that we want to check and see is language dot equals, and we want to see if it's equal to capital air, because remember, that's going to be our default to come back if, you know, we weren't successfully able to get something. So if the language equals error, that means that we want to, you know, go through this whole thing asking them which one they would like to use. And then, you know, that gives us the opportunity to then present a else situation to say, okay, you know, if they weren't able to find this information, then, you know, let's go ahead and set some things. Now, the else situation, let's go ahead and provide that. We want to update the text view, which right now we only have access to up there. So let's go ahead and cut this text view, paste it right up at the top. And again, we can still have this text view, but we want to move this to our onCreate method, same place where we're setting our shared preferences here. So we'll just go ahead and paste that. That really makes this set languages method that much cleaner. Go ahead and leave some space there. But with that in place, now in this else situation, you know, if we already have a language selected, we'll simply just say, okay, text view dot set text, and we'll go ahead and pass in whatever language has been selected, right? In this case, it would be whatever came out of shared preferences. All right, so with those things in place, let's go ahead and just see if we run the app that it will show. I believe we selected Spanish last time. Should say Spanish when the app opens up. This is from last time, so it doesn't really count. But look, app opens up, and oh, we are still asked, would you like to use Spanish or English? So let's do Spanish. It shouldn't be showing this again. Let's go ahead and X out of this, and let's try opening it one more time. So we'll go to our apps, language preferences, and we're still getting the box there. So let's go ahead and walk through this real quick. So if the language that comes back from here is equal to error, then we want to run the code here. So maybe it's not, maybe I didn't spell this correctly. So language, no, it looks like it's correct. Let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to do some live debugging in front of you. Let's go ahead and log whatever language is equal to. So we'll say the lang, and we'll just go ahead and type out language to see what it is that we're working with. Language, excellent. And now let's go ahead and run this. So this time when we run, we want to make sure that we've got logcat up and running here. And let's see, here comes the app. So it opens up, and So the lang is equal to air. So for some reason, oh, I know what it is. Whenever we did the put string, we forgot to do a dot apply there. Okay, so I bet once we fix this, that's going to be the case. So sometimes that's what it takes, doing a quick log and just sort of walking through the code there to see what the problem is. Let's see. So if I hit Spanish here, and I go ahead and I X out this app, and we open it up one more time, select language preference. Look at that. It shows Spanish. So the last piece of this app is we want to integrate the menu ability, right? If someone wants to go hit a menu and say, oh, I originally said Spanish, but now I want to change it to English, we should give them that option. So let's go ahead, bring back out our side menu. We have to create that menu directory. So we want a new directory that we'll call menu. And while we have that menu selected, we'll say File, New, and we want a menu resource file. So again, we're going to call this underscore main menu, and that's going to go in that menu directory. So that's good. Go ahead and hit OK there. So now we have this main menu.xml where we can set some stuff up. Let's go ahead and go to the text view of this. So remember, we want to put items inside of here. So let's make a new item. And with this item, we're going to first set the title. So we're going to say Android title is equal to, let's do English first, English, there we go. The next thing that we want to set here is the ID. So we're going to say Android ID is equal to a plus ID slash, and we'll say English right there. And that means we can close up this item. And we just want to create another item in case they want to do Spanish. So we'll go ahead and paste that in and change this to say Spanish, and also change this ID to say Spanish. There we go. So let's go look at the design. That looks beautiful. It's always weird to me why it shows it eclipsed here, but when we actually run the app that it doesn't, because there's clearly enough space. I don't know if that's an Android Studio bug or whatnot. But with these two things in place, we just then have to go add our proper menus here. By menus, I mean the proper methods for when someone selects something. So the first thing is we have to create the menu. So we're going to say on create options menu. And again, the idea here is we use that menu inflator. So we're going to say menu inflator is equal to, we want to do get menu inflator. Then with that, we're going to go ahead and say, all right, we're going to take this menu inflator and we're going to do dot inflate, and we want to pass in r dot menu dot main menu. That's the name of the one that we created. And then we're going to pass through this menu object just like that. Okay, that's all it takes for that method. And then for the next one here, this is when someone selects an item menu. So menu item rather, we're going to say on options item selected. And remember, again, we do want to call this super, but we have to return either true or false, saying whether or not we were able to successfully do this. So in this situation, we basically just want to check whether or not they set things equal to English or to Spanish. So let's do our switch like we did before. And inside of here, we want to switch on item dot get item ID. So in one case where we say, okay, if it's equal to capital R dot ID dot English, okay, if that's the case, then what we want to do is we want to call our set language method, and we're going to go ahead and pass in English, just like that. And we're going to do a similar case for if they choose capital R dot ID dot Spanish. In that situation, we'll say set language. We want to pass in Spanish. Okay. Now, we could go ahead and do the return true here and the return true for that other one, and then define default and all that stuff. But for right now, I think it's best if we just go ahead and say return true here like that. And then we can still do our default just in case something else comes through, and in which case we'd want to return false. But I think this will save us a little bit of code by saying if it wasn't one of those two, then we want to run that. Although I guess the problem with this one is that there could be a situation, well, this handles all the situations. So I guess we will actually have to do that. I tried to save us some code, didn't really work out. Not everything works. Okay, so go ahead and make sure we get proper spacing on all of this. And let's go ahead and give our app a run. So our app, when it opens up this time, now that we've selected Spanish, it should show that appropriately when it opens. But we should have the option to switch it to English or back to Spanish if we want to. So here comes the app. Look, it shows Spanish, but we now have this menu. So if I select English here, look at that. It chooses English. And to make sure that this works, let's go ahead and hit the X on that. And we will open up the app again, and it should show English. Boom! It shows English. Okay? So you are now in a perfect position to move forward on our Notes app. You learned about dialogues, you learned about menu items, and we've even taken the stuff we learned about storage and we've sort of meshed it all in here. So we're in a great spot to now make this Notes app. Let's dive into it.